Hey Fight fans, I'm Sarah Davis and you're watching Fight News Now Extra. We're bringing you the latest MMA news, including matchmakings and new contracts. Then we'll hear from our MMA panel, John Pollock, John Ramdian, and Robin Black, so stay tuned for it all. When Quinton "Rampage" Jackson fights Glover Teixeira at UFC on Fox 6 at the end of this month, it will be his last fight of his contract with the UFC. If he decides to be a free agent, Bellator Fighting Championship CEO Bjorn Rebney said that they're interested in bringing Rampage on. The UFC has announced 20 Strikeforce fighters that they'll be bringing on, and AKA's Josh Thompson is one of them. He was the last fighter to face Strikeforce's lightweight champion Gilbert Melendez and lost in a split decision. And UFC on Fox 7 on April 20th is shaping up with the addition of a welterweight bout that's sure to please the crowd. Verbal agreements are in place for Dan Hardy to meet Matt Brown in the cage. Hardy most recently defeated Amir Sadallah last September, while Brown went 4-0 in 2012. Those are the newsmakers. Now let's turn it over to John Pollock, John Ramdian, and Robin Black. And guys, how are you liking the looks of UFC on Fox 7 with the addition of this fight?
Looking very well right now when you stack it on top of the lightweight title fight that's been announced. And with Daniel Cormier, you have an excellent story to tell here and a huge platform to introduce this heavyweight. And whether he reaps those rewards at heavyweight or light heavyweight, Daniel Cormier is poised to have potentially a gigantic 2013.
Yeah, I agree, and I think this is Daniel Cormier's fight to win. I know you're high on Frank Mir in his striking game, but I think that Daniel Cormier he is the whole package. He's an Olympian. He was the captain of the Olympic wrestling team. He trains at one of the best camps in the world with the heavyweight champion, Cain Velasquez. He's a good guy, and if you go back, he's got a very interesting story, and I think this is going to be a very easy sell for the UFC as long as he can get past Frank Mir.
Yeah, and that's a key. He's got to get past Frank Mir, and we're going to see him really have his campaign at light heavyweight. And it may be Frank Mir that knocks him down there. Frank Mir is very good on the feet, very underrated striking. We've seen him look good against Czech Congo, against Nogueira. I mean, when Frank Mir is confident on the feet, he is very good. And he's very dangerous off his back. He can approach this fight the same way that Carlos Condit approached the fight with George St. Pierre. You're not going to win the wrestling match, so beat him on the feet and beat him on the ground. This is a great fight.
Where is Dan Cormier best suited for right now? He's coming in at heavyweight where we have seen him really excel over the last 2 years, but it looks like 205 is going to be his ultimate destination.
Yeah, I think so, but it just depends. I mean, if he continues to have success at heavyweight, I mean, that is the marquee division. If any fighter had their choice...
Well, you have a roadblock, though, at the championship level, though, and that's the issue.
Well, that's as long as Cain Velasquez stays the champion. You know, I expect that Junior Dos Santos, going into that third fight, will have a very different game plan than the second fight. And then you also have to throw into the mix Alistair Overeem and some of the other guys in heavyweight. So I think Daniel Cormier, I mean, the guy's got asthma, so it might be a very difficult task to put in those extra hours to get down to 205
This is when
pounds.
he was cornering Cain after the first round. He's like, you know, Cain, it's going okay, but let's put those hands down a little and, you know, take a shot or two from Junior. You know what? Let's test out those hands. Anyway, before Fox 7 occurs, we do have Fox 6. Quinton Jackson will take on Glover Teixeira, and at the UFC conference call, Quinton indicating this is the last fight on his UFC deal. Obviously, Bellator right now saying they're not really have Josh Barnett on their radar. Quinton certainly is right now, but let's, get ahead of ourselves here. Quinton loses to Glover Teixeira. Does Bellator really want to be going after the scraps here of the UFC, or is Quinton that big of a name that it would be silly not to bring him in?
The thing is, Quinton Jackson has fought fighters at the highest level. He's fought a who's who in the 205-pound division. And if you're fighting the best guys at 205 pounds, you're probably not going to win them all. And Glover Teixeira is just a guy that so many people are high on right now, and it depends on how the fight goes down. If Rampage loses a unanimous decision, but it's exciting, and he comes forward and lays it on the line and entertains people, why not? This guy is a proven draw. People love to see Rampage, especially the old Rampage. And I think Bellator will breathe new life into Quinton Rampage's career.
This is an interesting fight because if Rampage, treats training camp like he has in the past, where, it's this annoying thing you got to do to be able to fight, he's going to get his ass kicked by Glover Teixeira. But win or lose, if he comes in motivated to make a statement, this could be a phenomenal fight, and he can absolutely win. He can beat any 205-pounder on the planet. But win or lose, you get him walking out to the Bellator cage, and you drop that chain on, you start doing all that stuff, people will be into it. It will definitely be a score for Bellator.
Well, you bring up, though, the old Rampage, and looking today in 2013, I don't know if Quinton is necessarily aware of what his earning potential is outside of the UFC. If he's expecting those UFC paydays from Bellator, I think Bellator is going to be very conservative in what they offer this guy.
Yeah, no, but he said that. He said he's willing to take a pay cut. He understands that the UFC is the big dog in the sport, and that he's going to have to take a step back if he wants to continue to earn a living in mixed martial arts. The problem is he just doesn't like the whole outlook of the UFC and the way that they treat their fighters. That's between Rampage and the management. But I think Bellator is a good fit for him, especially if you can get him on TV and let him do the things that Rampage.
Cross over to TNA a little bit.
Why not?
You know, it would be definitely would be cool. But you know, we'll see. It's like, when it's the biggest thing in the world, when it's the place you got to be. I mean, do you see any NFL players saying anything about the NFL? Because what are they going to do? Go play arena football? I mean, it's not that different these days.
There is a Canadian Football League
What?
of note
What?
up here. Average salary, I believe, is on par with digital television. Before we go, Strikeforce, 20 fighters being brought over by the UFC. Any surprises here, John? I know you're outraged over some oversight.
Yeah, Adlan Amagov. This guy's
Jesus.
Very exciting.
Not to mention Billy Evangelista.
Yeah, I'd like to
I
see
just
Billy
look
there.
at it stylistically. Think about Billy Evangelista and Sam Stout. These guys are going to bang, entertain the crowd. These are the type of fights that you want to put on television.
So we may have Daniel Cormier, Sarah, but missing the boat on the Billy Evangelista train.
Well, there may be more contracts to be made.
There
right?
must be. It's Billy Evangelista, for God's sake.
You bet. All right, thanks, guys. And this Friday night on Fight Network, we have a little something special for you. It's retro action movie, The French Connection, starring Gene Hackman, and plenty of car chases. So that's Friday night at 9 p.m. Eastern. And stay right here. We've got flyweight Demetrius Johnson next.